My 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, stood by the front door, clutching her backpack straps with knuckles that were white from strain. I was checking my phone, distracted, already mentally rehearsing the presentation I had to give to a client 3 hours away. "Mom," she said. Her voice was small, too small. I looked down. Sophie wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, toward the kitchen where my husband, Mark, was pouring his travel coffee. He was whistling, a happy, carefree tune. "What is it, sweetie?" I asked, reaching for my car keys, the silver fob to my SUV that sat in the ceramic bowl by the door. Sophie stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. Her hands were cold. She pulled me down, forcing me to kneel on the hardwood floor until we were eye to eye. She leaned in so close I could smell the strawberry toothpaste on her breath. "Daddy told me not to ride in your car today," she whispered. I froze. The world didn't stop, but it seemed to sharpen. The dust motes dancing in the sunlight, the hum of the refrigerator, the whistling from the kitchen, everything became hyperreal. "Why did he say that?" I whispered back, matching her volume. I tried to smile to reassure her, but my mother's instinct, that primal alarm bell buried deep in the lizard brain, was already screaming. Sophie looked over her shoulder again. She was terrified. Not I broke a vase terrified. She was afraid of being heard. "He said your car is going to have a big owie today," she said, the words tumbling out fast. "I saw him under it last night, in the garage. He had the heavy tools. He said I have to ride in his truck to school so I don't get hurt when the crunch happens. But he said it's a secret game. He said if I tell you, the game is ruined." The crunch. A secret game that ends in a crunch. I looked at the keys in my hand. My SUV was parked in the driveway. It was a 2022 model, top safety rating. Mark wasn't a mechanic. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep. He didn't change his own oil. He didn't own heavy tools, at least, none that belonged in a suburban garage. I stood up slowly. My knees cracked. In the kitchen, the whistling stopped. "Ready to go, babe," Mark called out. He walked into the hallway, adjusting his tie. He looked handsome. He looked like the man I had married 10 years ago. He smiled at me, that lopsided, boyish grin that used to make my stomach flutter. "Roads look slick this morning," he said, glancing outside. "Make sure you give yourself extra time to get to the client site. You know how dangerous Route 9 can be in the rain." Route 9. A winding, 2-lane highway with sheer cliff drops and no guardrails for miles. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in a decade, I didn't see my husband. I saw a man waiting for a payout. "Actually," I said, and I was proud that my voice didn't shake, "I think I left my presentation notes upstairs. You take Sophie to school. I'll leave in a few minutes." Mark hesitated. His eyes flicked to the keys in my hand, then to my face. He was assessing me, looking for suspicion. I gave him a tired smile. "Go on, I don't want her to be late." "Okay," he said, relaxing. He bent down and kissed me on the cheek. His lips were warm. "Drive safe, Sarah. Call me when you get there." Drive safe. I watched them leave. I watched him buckle our daughter into his truck. I watched him back out of the driveway, waving at me. As soon as his taillights disappeared around the corner, I locked the front door. I slid down against the wood and let out a breath that felt like a scream. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the keys. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I am a forensic accountant. I investigate fraud for a living. I don't operate on feelings. I operate on evidence. If I called the police now, Mark would say he was fixing a loose rattle. He would say Sophie had an active imagination. He would say I was a hysterical, paranoid wife. I needed proof. I needed receipts. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Sal," I said when the gruff voice answered, "I need a flatbed to my house, cash job, and I need you to treat my car like a crime scene." While I waited for the tow truck, I sat on the floor of my foyer and stared at the empty house. How did we get here? That's the question everyone asks. They want to believe that men who try to murder their wives are monsters from day one. They want to believe there were signs, a slap, a scream, a history of violence. Because if the signs are obvious, then you are safe. You would have seen them. But Mark wasn't a monster. He was perfect. We lived in Whispering Oaks, a gated community in Northern Virginia. We were the couple on the Christmas card. I made good money auditing Fortune 500 companies. Mark made good money selling high-end cardiac equipment. We had the house, the vacation home in the Carolinas, the college fund for Sophie. But money is a funny thing. For me, it was numbers on a spreadsheet. Security. For Mark, it was an identity. About 8 months ago, the texture of our life changed. It wasn't abrupt. It was subtle, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. It started with the secrecy. Mark used to be the guy who left his phone on the kitchen island while he showered. Then, he started taking it with him. Then, he started sleeping with it under his pillow. Work stress, he told me when I asked. Mergers, NDAs, I can't leave client data lying around. It sounded plausible. Mark was always full of corporate buzzwords. Then came the criticism. He started picking at me. Small things. Do you really need that second latte, Sarah? It adds up. Why did you buy Sophie those shoes? She'll grow out of them in a month. We need to be liquid. A recession is coming. Cash is king. I found it annoying, especially since he had just leased a brand new truck that cost more than my first salary. But I adjusted. I cut back. I assumed he was stressed about his sales quotas. And then, 3 months ago, his mother moved in. Patricia. If Mark was the architect of my misery, Patricia was the site manager. She had divorced her 4th husband and needed a place to stay, just for a few weeks. She took over the guest suite and immediately started whispering in Mark's ear. They would stop talking when I entered the room. They would exchange looks, heavy, knowing looks. The biggest red flag, the one that haunts me at night because I ignored it, was the life insurance. 6 weeks ago, our anniversary dinner. Mark ordered a bottle of expensive wine. He held my hand across the table. His palm was sweaty. Sarah, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I've been thinking about the future, about Sophie, if anything happened to you. I couldn't handle it, not just emotionally. Financially, I'd have to stop working to take care of her. We'd lose the house. He pulled a folder out of his bag. I want to upgrade our policies. I found a broker who can get us a great deal. $4 million term life. But here's the kicker. It has a double indemnity rider. Double indemnity. That means if the death is accidental, violent, sudden like a car crash, the payout doubles. $8 million. Mark, that seems excessive, I said, laughing nervously. The premiums must be huge. I'll pay them, he insisted, squeezing my hand until it hurt. Please, Sarah, do it for me. Do it for Sophie. I just need to sleep at night knowing we're safe. I looked at him. I saw fear in his eyes. I thought it was the fear of losing me. I didn't know it was the fear of a lone shark breaking his legs. I signed the papers, and that signature started the clock. The tow truck arrived at 8:45 a.m. I gave the driver specific instructions. Do not start the engine. Do not depress the brake pedal. Winch it up by the axles. If the brake lines were compromised, pressing the pedal could blow out the remaining fluid and destroy the evidence of how it was done. I rode in the cab of the truck to Sal's shop. Sal was an old contact from my fraud investigation days. He had testified in cases involving staged accidents. He knew the difference between a tragedy and a crime. When we got to the shop, Sal put the SUV straight onto the lift. The smell of the garage, grease, old rubber, cold metal, made me nauseous. Sal walked under the car with a halogen light. I stood by the tool bench, hugging my arms around my chest, praying that I was wrong. Praying that Sophie had just had a nightmare. Sal went quiet. He stood under the rear axle for a long time, then he waved me over. Sarah, he said. His voice was flat, hard. Put on these safety glasses. I walked under the lift. Sal pointed the light at the hydraulic brake line running to the rear left wheel. Tell me what you see, he said. I squinted. It looks shiny. It's shiny because the protective coating has been filed off, Sal said. This isn't a cut. If you cut a line with pliers, it crimps. It leaks immediately. You would have seen a puddle in your driveway this morning. He ran a gloved finger over the metal tube. This is filed down. Someone took a metal file and rubbed this spot until the wall of the tube was paper thin. It's holding pressure right now. You could have driven to the grocery store. You could have driven to the school. He looked at me, his face grim. But the trip you were taking today, Route 9, high speeds, steep grades. He shook his head. The first time you hit the brakes hard, like for a hairpin turn, the hydraulic pressure would have spiked to 1,000 psi. It would have blown right through this thin spot like a balloon popping. You would have lost all braking power instantly. He paused, letting the weight of it settle on me. This wasn't a repair, Sarah. This is a time bomb. He didn't want you to crash in the driveway. He wanted you to crash off the side of a mountain. I took out my phone. My hands were steady now. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp rage. I took pictures, close-ups, wide angles. I took a video of Sal explaining the mechanism of failure. Write it up, Sal, I said. Official affidavit. Notarized. You calling the cops? Sal asked. Not yet, I said. I have to go to the bank first. I took an Uber to a hotel downtown. I couldn't go home. I couldn't go to work. I set up a command center in room 402. I am a forensic accountant. Finding hidden money is my superpower. Mark thought he was clever because he changed the password to our joint savings account. He forgot that I am the primary account holder on the home internet. I accessed the router logs. I saw every site he had visited in the last 6 months. And there it was, the secret life of Mark. It wasn't another woman. It was much worse. Gambling, but not just poker nights with the boys. We were talking about high-stakes offshore crypto casinos. Stake, Rubit, DraftKings. I used his laptop, which he had left at home, but he had synced his keychain to our family iPad. He was lazy. Criminals are usually lazy. I logged into his email. The numbers were staggering. He had drained the savings, $140,000. He had liquidated Sophie's college fund, $65,000. He had maxed out 5 credit cards I didn't know existed. But the real horror was in the deleted folder. Emails from a user named Vinny Loans. Email 1 3 weeks ago. You're down $400K, Mark. The interest is ticking. Email 2 1 week ago. I don't want excuses. I want cash. If you don't have it by Wednesday, we come for the house. We come for the family. Email 3, last night 11:30 p.m. It's handled. Big liquidity event happening tomorrow. Double indemnity payout. Just give me 48 hours to file the claim. I stared at the screen. Liquidity event. That was me. I was the liquidity event. He referred to the death of his wife, the mother of his child, as a liquidity event. I kept digging. I found the emails between Mark and his mother, Patricia. Patricia, are you sure it will look like an accident? You can't leave a mess. Mark, I'm using the file method. No cuts, it's untraceable. She'll just lose control on the curve. Patricia, good, be strong, think of the future. We can finally buy that condo in Boca. I threw up. I ran to the hotel bathroom and retched until there was nothing left. His mother knew. She wasn't just living in my house. She was co-conspiring to kill me so they could retire to Florida on my blood money. I washed my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked pale, ghostly. Pull it together, Sarah, I told my reflection. You are not a victim. You are the auditor, and you are about to close this account. I called Detective Reynolds. He was a contact I had made during a massive corporate embezzlement case a few years back. He trusted me. Reynolds, I said, I have an attempted murder 1 case, and I have the receipts. I sent him everything. The mechanic's affidavit, the photos of the brake lines, the gambling debts, the emails. Jesus, Sarah, Reynolds said, his voice tight. We need to pick him up now. Where is he? He's at work, I said. But if you pick him up now, he'll lawyer up. He'll claim the emails were jokes. He'll claim the car was vandalized by a stranger. I need him to confess. I need a jury to hear him admit it. That's dangerous, Reynolds warned. I have a plan, I said. I'm going to text him. I'm going to make him think it's happening. I coordinated with Reynolds. He positioned an unmarked unit outside my house. Another unit was waiting near Mark's office. I sat on the hotel bed. It was 1 p.m. Based on my schedule, I should be on the return trip from the client, navigating the downhill section of Route 9. I opened my texts. Me heading back now. Meeting went well. Rain is getting worse, though. Mark, immediate reply. Great, drive slow, be careful on those turns. He was watching his phone. He was waiting. I waited 20 minutes. Me, Mark, the car feels weird. Mark, weird how? Me, the pedal is spongy. I have to push it all the way to the floor to slow down. I could feel his excitement through the screen. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Mark, probably just the wet roads ABS. Don't panic, just pump them. You're almost off the mountain, right? He was encouraging me to keep going, to not pull over. I waited another 5 minutes. Then I sent the hook. Me, OMG Mark, I can't stop. The brakes are gone. Help me. Then I turned off my phone. Now we waited. If Mark was an innocent man, he would be dialing 911 right now. He would be calling the state troopers. He would be leaving his office, screaming, racing toward my last known location. We tracked his phone. He didn't call 911. He didn't call the police. He stayed in his office parking lot for 45 minutes. Then he made one call to his mother. The call lasted 3 minutes. Then he drove home. I was waiting for him. I had driven my rental car to a neighbor's driveway 2 houses down. I slipped into my house through the back door. Detective Reynolds and his team were listening via a wire I was wearing. They were also stationed in the backyard and the garage. I sat in the living room armchair, facing the door. The house was dark. The rain was hammering against the windows. I heard his key in the lock. Mark burst in. He was putting on a performance. He was hyperventilating, shouting my name. Sarah, Sarah, are you here? Oh God, please be here. He ran into the living room. He saw me. And for a split second, the mask slipped. He didn't look relieved. He looked cheated. He looked like a man who had scratched a winning lottery ticket only to find out it was void. Sarah, he gasped, freezing in the hallway. You're okay. I called you. You said the brakes were gone. I thought you crashed. I almost did, I lied. My voice was calm, unnaturally calm. I managed to steer into a runaway truck ramp. The car is totaled, but I'm fine. Mark let out a breath that sounded like a hiss. Thank God, he said, but his eyes were darting around. Where is the car? Where is the tow truck? I had it towed to a shop, I said. Which shop? He snapped. The dealer. No, I said. Sal's garage. Mark went pale. He knew Sal. He knew Sal was thorough. Why would you do that? He demanded, his voice rising. I told you to use the dealer. We have a warranty. Sal is a crook. Sal is honest, Mark, I said, standing up. And Sal found the file marks. The silence in the room was deafening. The only sound was the rain and the ticking of the grandfather clock. File marks, Mark whispered. The metal file, I said. The one you used last night. Did you wipe it down, Mark? Or are your fingerprints still on it in the toolbox? Mark took a step back. You're crazy. I was fixing a rattle. Sophie saw me. I was fixing a rattle. Sophie told me about the big owie, I said. She told me about the secret game. She told me you said I had to go crunch. Mark's face contorted. The handsome, charming husband melted away. In his place was a cornered rat. She's a lying brat, he spat. She imagines things. Did she imagine the gambling debt? I asked. Mark stopped breathing. Did she imagine the $485,000 you owe to Vinny? I pressed, stepping closer. Did she imagine the emails where you promised Vinny a liquidity event by today? Did she imagine you trading my life for an insurance check? Mark began to shake. You hacked my email. I audited you, Mark. You're bankrupt. You're finished. He looked at me with pure hatred. You be asterisk TCH, he hissed. You have no idea. They were going to kill me. They were going to hurt the family. I did this for us. I did this to save us. You did this to save yourself, I screamed. You coward. You were going to let Sophie grow up without a mother because you couldn't stop betting on crypto. It was supposed to be quick, he yelled back, losing all control. You wouldn't have felt it. And we would have been set. $8 million, Sarah. We could have been free. Why couldn't you just die? Why do you always have to be so smart? Why couldn't you just die? That was the line. Police, I shouted. Now, the kitchen door burst open. The front door kicked in. Police, get on the ground, Mark screamed. He tried to run toward the back door, but Reynolds tackled him into the coffee table. Glass shattered everywhere. I stood over him as they cuffed his hands behind his back. He looked up at me, blood trickling from his nose. Sarah, please, he begged. Don't let them take me. I'm sick. I have a problem. I love you. I looked down at him. You don't love me, Mark, I said coldly. You love the money, and now you have neither. The aftermath was a hurricane, but I navigated it like a captain. The arrests. Mark was charged with attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and insurance fraud. Patricia was arrested an hour later at the house. She was packing her bags to flee. The texts on her phone confirmed she was an active co-conspirator. The trial, it was the sensation of the county. Mark's defense lawyer tried to plead insanity. He claimed the gambling addiction caused a psychotic break, but I was the star witness. I presented the receipts, the financial audit, a 50-page report detailing every dollar he stole and gambled. The search history, how to sabotage break lines, searched 3 weeks prior. Survivor benefits for widowers. The Sophie tape, a recording of Sophie telling the child psychologist about the big owie and the secret game. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Mark was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. Patricia got 15 years for conspiracy. The cleanup, I didn't stop at prison. I wanted my life back. Because I proved the debt was incurred through fraud and illegal activity. He forged my signature on the loans. The judge granted me innocent spouse relief. The creditors couldn't touch my assets. I sold the house. I couldn't live there. Every time I looked at the driveway, I saw the ghost of my SUV. I sold his truck. I sold his watches. I sold everything he owned. I took the proceeds and moved Sophie and me to a quiet town on the coast. I bought a small house with no garage. We park on the street. It's been 2 years. Sophie is 8 now. She's happy. She plays soccer. She's in therapy and she's healing. She knows her daddy is in a long timeout because he made very bad choices. She doesn't know the full details. She doesn't know he tried to trade her mother for a payout, but she knows she is a hero. Sometimes when I tuck her in at night, she asks, "Did I save you, Mom?" And I kiss her forehead and say, "Yes, baby. You saved us both." I still have trust issues. I check my brake lines every morning before I get in the car. It's a habit I can't break. I don't date. I don't let anyone handle my finances. But I am alive. I am alive because of a 6-year-old's whisper. I am alive because I didn't dismiss my intuition. I am alive because I remembered that even the people we love the most are capable of terrible things when they are desperate. So, here is my question to you. If your spouse told your child to keep a secret from you, if your gut told you something was wrong on a Tuesday morning, would you brush it off? Would you get in the car? Or would you do what I did? Would you burn your life down to find the truth? Trust is a beautiful thing, but survival requires proof. Check your brakes.